Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, a show that celebrates all things nerdy. You'll get an insider's look into the world of comic books, graphic novels, TV and film, gaming and pop culture, as well as the technologies that drive all of it. Now, are you ready to get nerdy? Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, the show about all things nerdy. We discuss about nerd news, movies, TV shows, games, comics, and so much more. I'm Brian.
I'm Chad, guys.
I'm going to go last.
Oh. We're about to get nerdy. All right.
I'm Brian Fantana.
No one cares. So now what we're doing is we just want to, before we jump into the show, we want to let you guys know to tune in. Chad, where are your hands? Chad, where are your hands? I know it's weird. I don't like it. Let's change it. There you go. And tune into the Rising Tide Broadcast Network, everyone, where Sunday through Saturday we have shows that can make you inspired, can make you inspired to drink, can make you inspired to create, and can make you inspired to potentially jump off a cliff, but with friends. So tune in to the Rising Tide Broadcast Network tomorrow morning after this show, which is the Dastardly Dingoes podcast. Tomorrow morning, we will be followed by the Nevermind the Furthermore with Brian K. Morris at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. All right. So
you sounded like a mixture of Frasier and Robin Williams.
So you saying that I could be a really good radio talk show host?
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know. I don't know what that means. So anyway, we've got some comments. We got some people showing up. Donna saying, "Wonder what they're up to tonight." We're about to tell you. Glad you're here. Carl Witzman says, "Should be interesting." Whatever it is, I'm sure it will be. Sweet. We'll see what kind of interesting he's talking about. Donna Carlene says, "Hi, guys."
Hello.
Hello, madam. And Sarah. How are you, madam?
Hello.
Yes. Hello. Carl says, Brian Robin tries to bring some announcer class to the show. That's as classy as the show's ever going to get. He says, hi to Sarah. Donna says, are you saying Brian has a face for radio? Yes. I'm saying Brian has a face for radio, madam.
Yes.
For sure. So today we are talking about inspiration and creativity. And we actually today's show notes, the outline of the show is brought to you by the one and only awful human being of the world, Chad Nuss. Yeah. That's right, everyone. He wrote it, yet he does not want to own up to it while reading the questions. Not really. I took it from. Yeah, we'll see how that works.
We'll see how it goes. If it's awesome. I definitely.
What you got up there, Brian?
Yeah,
you got something bouncing at the top of your screen.
Right here.
Yeah. Hanging. Yeah.
I don't like that.
Don't pay attention to that. So what we're going to do, this is better. So what we're going to do first
my anxiety.
We're going to So Jeremy doesn't have a panic attack. I'll fix this.
Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy. So we're going to have a little icebreaker. We're going to go around the screen here. Chad's going to start us off because I want to pick on him first. Okay. And we are going to ask a couple questions. What creators most inspire you and why? And while you're at it, give a specific example of one of their works that has meant the most to you as a creator. So, Chad, why don't you go first?
So, I like to create a lot of different things. Most people know me on here for comic book stuff. So, I do The Silence, which is a sci-fi comic book. But most of my inspiration does not come from comic book creators. I tend to look for inspiration and creativity outside of the genre of comic books, partly because I think one of the when I first started getting into comic books, I spent a lot of time looking at the old 90s image artists and learned a lot from them. The problem is that their style, if you do that too much, their style tends to kind of influence yours in a way that you get lost in it. And so
you tend to start drawing a lot of pouches.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of
yeah.
pouches.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've found over the years that it's actually more helpful for me to look outside of the comic book genre. And that also helps you think differently about storytelling, because if you're always constantly going back to comic books, you tend to follow the same patterns that are out there.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's helpful to expose yourself to other creators to kind of break that and introduce new ways of storytelling. So I picked three for tonight. There's definitely a lot more than just these three, but these are three that I go back to often when it comes to inspiration and creativity. The first one is my all-time favorite is Marcel Duchamp, who was an artist at the turn of the century. He's part of the Dada movement and is very famous for he put a urinal on the wall, and we called it art. And so you say what you want about that. A lot of people hate that kind of thing. I find it I hate it when it's reproduced 100 million times by other artists. But when the first person comes along and does it, and they have a good philosophical reason for doing it, I love that. I feel like a lot of modern art is knockoffs from what he did, because he did so many different kinds of what you would consider modern art, and you see a lot of modern art movements tied back to him. But I love him because of the way he uses abstraction to tell a story. And so I want to show, if I can find it, I'll show a picture of one of, he does this one called the large glass, and it's here's the urinal. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. There's the urinal. Yeah. So and it's called a ready-made, and he was the first one to really do that. And so he would find objects as they are and then just put them up on a wall and say, this is art. And I know a lot of people hate that kind of stuff, and like I said before, some of that kind of stuff I think is dumb, but the fact that he was the one that really originated it was pretty awesome. So anyways, not to go on too long about him, but of course now I can't shut up. Now I can't find I can't find it. But the one that I'm talking about, the large glass, it's literally like a 15, 16, 17 foot piece of glass, and it has this whole arrangement on it talking about marriage, and has all these abstract forms on it and all that. So anyways, he's a big one for me. And then another one is
before you go on, everybody who was keeping score, Chad said urinal on the wall 5 times.
Yes.
Nice.
So you know.
Thank you.
Okay, continue.
I will continue to use that term for the rest of the show now. The next one, who did not do a urinal on the wall, Kazimir Malevich. He's Russian, and he did a very controversial piece of art. He did a man. I should have marked these pages before I got in here, but
that would have been a really great idea.
A lot of turnings happening right now.
I hate all you guys. But he did a very famous.
Damian didn't do nothing.
Damian didn't do anything, you jerk.
He did a very, very famous black square, and then he also did a white square on a canvas. And once again,
was the paint cracked? Is that?
Yeah. It's just from age.
That's not like the meaning. Yeah. That wasn't like the point of it.
You just like putting black squares on the wall and calling it art.
He would do a lot of like geometric shapes and things like that. And so once again, he was one of the first ones to do that. And it was so controversial because so many people up to that point have, done this huge realistic Renaissance type paintings. And here he was coming with, here's a black square on the wall. And his point was he was trying to make kind of like spiritual analogies of this and like explain more spiritual reality beyond just like these awesome painting, like realistic paintings. So use abstraction to communicate that. And I have a huge respect for that, because I also love to work in abstract art and love the ability of abstraction to tell stories that regular realistic drawing sometimes can't. So, and then my third one is S Eliot. And there's a book here by him of his poems called The Wasteland, and then other writings. And he is my favorite poet of all time. I don't read a ton of poetry, but from all the poetry I have read, his affects me in in a different way than any other poetry I've ever read. Like the way he uses words, he can use just a few words and it gets this scene will be painted in your mind, and you see details and things that you wouldn't have ever thought of if you had used like lots of words and lots of language. Just the way he does it just is incredible to me. And so like there's a couple poems for example, where I think about, he describes the scene of this a street scene, and the way he uses language, he'll just bring up certain details that automatically put this picture in your mind of this 18th century or 19th century street scene with, women walking down the street and someone hanging out the window, and the gas lamp on the street, and the cars going by and all that kind of stuff. Like just the way he uses words is incredible to me. So when I think about inspiration, or if I need inspiration, I typically go to those three people, and I'll kind of flip through my book and look at their artwork or read some of the poetry, and it starts getting my mind working and challenging me to get better as an artist. So
very
there
cool.
you go.
Sweet. I like it. All right, jumping back to the comments really quick. Sarah says that she is great. It is great to be amongst her second family. Yes, glad you're here.
It's very sweet.
Very good. Absolutely. And Donna thinks I'm cute. So, or maybe you should talk about Brian K. Morris. I could see that. He's a cute guy.
Either one.
I like him. Yeah, either one.
Both of them are equally as outlandish.
Equally as scruffy. I was shocked to see the difference between 10 years ago. Oh, yes, the 10-year picture where I did not have a beard. It shocked and frightened many people. And, of course, Rodman Rabbit.
Nice.
Yeah. Chad, you should do a rendition of that.
Yeah.
It's always funny, like, people, like, I've known you for a long time, Brian, right? But thinking back, I don't remember you looking the way that you did in that picture, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that happen to anybody else? Like you're just Brian. Yeah. And even though you and I have gotten older, we look completely different than we did 10 years ago. I don't know. It's strange. It's like you don't notice the change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really strange. And there's another picture that of me and my grandma, and I might post it on her birthday. I don't know, but I don't remember looking like that at all in the picture. I'm like, who is that? And I think I was like 18 or 19. So it was like whilst I was in the best shape of my life, I was not a rotund Hagrid. Yes, indeed. And it was strange. But Sarah says, I put my comic shop owner to work. Good job. Most of what I ask for, he's never heard of it because I don't always get the most popular titles. Actually, I like that. That is cool.
Yeah.
Go for the weird stuff because usually, sometimes you'll just get really weird for no reason. But a lot of the times you'll find really, really great stuff. And Sarah wants to ask, where else do urinals go other than the wall?
Urinal on the wall.
So, yeah, there you go. What's that? 12 now? 12 times?
12.
75.
Okay.
And Brian says, hello, everyone. Be sure to destroy the thumbs up. And when you subscribe, do unspeakable things to that bell so you will get dingoized at every opportunity.
Is it dingoized?
Ooh, I like that too. Dingoized.
I like that.
For sure. For sure. And we're heralding Brian's name as we should. And Donna says, if I need inspiration, I watch shows like In the Heat of the Night, the TV series. Yeah. And Counter-Strike, again, TV series. And Brian is shouting vigorously at Sarah. Sarah says that she thought that you looked great. So there we go. And Brian R. is freaking adorable. Why, thank you, my lovely people. Sweet. Mike, Jimmy, Lorsha DeBrew, and hello, sir. Glad you're here. Brian K. Morris says, when I need inspiration, I let Cookie tell me how many bills came in that day. That sounds good. Ted Davies says, good evening, superheroes. Hello, sir. Hello. And we're saying hello to each other. Mike Jimmy says, Brian K. Morris, checking the bank account usually helps me as well. And then he also goes on to say, hope you're all having a wonderful evening. It's too late for me, but here I am. Well, we're glad that you're here, sir. And then Brian is saying hello to Donna. So let's continue with our what, just to restate the question, what creators most inspire you and why, and give a specific answer or a specific example of their work that inspires you the most. Jeremy, you're next.
Yeah. I think mine's David Fincher.
Ooh, that's a good choice.
It's always been David Fincher.
It's always been him.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've told the story before. My older brothers convincing my dad to take me and them to see Alien 3 when I was young. I mean, I was like 7. So
such an intense movie.
Yeah. It's not something you watch when you're 7. Yeah. So I think it's a memory that, I connect with hanging out with my older brothers. They're 6 and 8 years older than me. So, but I love the decisions that he makes in his movies. You can tell he just does not care about what is going to be the most popular thing. If you look at the chronology of all the Alien movies, they all kind of pander a little bit, because they want to be that nostalgia from the first Alien movie or, something like that. But the third one, it's an outlier. It doesn't really connect except for the main character. I don't know, but it's still very interesting. The animal alien hybrids that he came up with and things like that. I just thought it was a good choice. And then, he just the way that the movie 7 is filmed.
Oh, gosh.
From second one, you're just depressed.
It's wonderful.
You know what I mean? It just drags you down physically, just in the way that it's shot. There's some pretty sporadic, switches during conversations. He'll do this thing where it's a wide shot and it shows everybody, but then it's close up, close up, close up, close up, close up. It gets real frenetic and kind of makes you panicked because that's what he wants.
And really, in many ways, I think the new Batman movie is, hugely inspired by 7. Because I've always said 7 is a Batman movie without Batman.
Yeah.
What would Gotham be like without Batman? And that is 7.
If Batman was a serial killer.
Oh, yeah. Or
named
that.
Kevin Spacey.
Right, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I love 7 is... Gosh, I think I watched 7 for the first time when I was a teenager. So I might have been with you, Jeremy. I think it was in Tim's basement. I think it was the first time that we watched it. And gosh, it
and you're just kind of
I was like, what is happening? Because I had no idea what was in the box. I didn't know. I hadn't heard anything about it.
Nope. But I don't know. He's definitely a good source of inspiration for me. I went back, maybe 5 years ago and rewatched all of his movies. And he just, I don't know. I love hearing the stories about him doing 500 takes of one shot. And how miserable that must have made everyone else feel, but being there, but it was the perfect shot once he got it.
Right.
And I like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories like that about, the guy who directed The Exorcist. Well, he did a lot. He did a lot of crazy stuff, but the guy that directed The Exorcist, I can't he's a self-proclaimed one take guy. But there are so many stories of like 75 takes for this one scene that he had to get right and all this crazy stuff. So those kind of directors, I can't imagine working with them. The finished product is amazing,
right?
But Gosh, that must be like nerve-wrecking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like a
absolutely.
year after
Especially if it's usually like really intense scenes.
Yeah.
And it's like, just imagine being in that headspace for 75 takes.
Yeah.
Like, geez.
Or thinking, or doing one of the 75 as being like the best you've ever acted in your life, but that's not the one they use.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, and by the 75th one, you're so exhausted emotionally, you know, it's like, that must be so frustrating.
It's like not using Leonardo's cup scene in Django Unchained because he cut his hand. Do you guys know?
Oh,
yeah.
When he slammed it. Real blood,
yeah. And they were able to, like, between takes, get fake blood, so he wasn't actually smearing his blood on Kerry Washington's face. But, like, imagine going through all of that. The whole set, like, the atmosphere, like, what is happening? And then the director's like, I don't like that one. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I refuse.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really when you get a lot of arguments on set.
Yeah.
Is like, especially if an actor thinks that, you know, they've done a great job and the director's like, it's not what I want out of the scene. And then, you know, that's when egos collide and grossness. I would never want to work on a movie set. I think that sounds awful.
I learned something about David Fincher a few years ago, and it's just perfect. So he does not use like squibs or like fake blood in his movies. It's all CG.
Oh, and really?
He said, like, he's not a heavy CG guy. I think the most that he did was on The Social Network, putting Armie Hammer's face on the Winklevoss twins.
Yeah.
But yeah, every show, if there's any like gunshot wounds or something like that, it's all CG, and it's because he doesn't want to ruin a take with a squib not going off the right way.
Yeah.
You know, because he wants them off for himself, basically. Like, I don't want to have to do over because some stupid mechanical problem. I want to do it because I want to get the perfect thing.
And a lot of his films, that's okay, because there's, like you said, there's not a lot of CG in a lot of his films. It's a lot of them are very much based in reality, and there's not a ton of special effects happening there.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, so is there any more? Or was that it for you? That takes the cake.
Yeah, for me, like, honestly, we didn't end up using it, but the David Fincher from Alien 3, his vibe was what I used when I made that short video for you, Chad. We ended up, you know, about, like, where it's all glitchy and things like that.
Yeah.
That was a huge inspiration for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I think he is like the most consistent source of inspiration for me. Like, you know, you can always go to that pool and know that, like, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
There are some directors that, like, they're, you know, one-hit wonders in terms of that for me. They may be very successful, but, like, did it catch me and make me want to create more? And I think he's like the most consistent source.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool, dude.
And that's saying something, you know, just because of how much I like Christopher Nolan and things like that.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised he didn't pop up there on your list.
Yeah.
All right, Brian K. Morris says, I understand, Jeremy. My mother took me to see Psycho before I was in first grade. I watched the shower scene through my fingers. From there, my course was set on watching shower scenes. I'm not sure what you're talking about there, Brian. Sarah says, I was in the front row at 12 years old to see Misery. Oh,
you know, I've never seen that movie before.
It's really good. It is really good. But I'll tell you what, if you have any anxiety issues at all, don't watch the movie. It is so nerve-wracking. Like, for me, I get a ton of anxiety, like, with movies about someone, not like supernatural stuff, but like someone who is trapped in a house and can't get out. Like, because there is someone there keeping them there. and they're all adults. Like that's very specific. But that
No
like
children.
it doesn't right, like it doesn't scare me. It just makes me like like it's claustrophobic kind of. It just really wrecks my anxiety. So I watched it once, and I probably won't ever watch it again just because I didn't enjoy it. It's a great movie. It's a great performance by Kathy Bates. My gosh, so good. So if you haven't seen it, give it a watch. But just know it's a nerve wrecker.
It's also closest as far as Stephen King's movies go. It's the closest to the book.
Yes, it is very close to the book. Very, very close to the book.
That's good information because I would never have known that unless someone told me.
What, that it was a Stephen King book?
Because I don't read.
Yeah, we know. We know you can't read. It's okay. Mike Jimmy says, I was born after age restrictions and I'm a total wuss. My youth was innocent. That's all right. That's okay. That's all right. You know what? It's interesting. I was a total wuss when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, like middle school age, so a little bit like preteen, that's kind of when I started getting more adventurous. But I made myself watch horror movies and horror stuff when I was a child, and I was a total pansy. And then eventually I was like, wait a minute, this is kind of fun. And so I found, and now look at me. So lots of horror
full-blown
everywhere. Exactly. And Donna whispers to Carl and says that explains so much. Yeah, I'm sure it does. And Ted says, got him. Sarah says, I laughed through Hellraiser. Go figure. Oh boy. I love Hellraiser. It's actually a really good. If you with any Clive Barker movie, if you can stomach a lot of gore, his stories are so beautiful. His stories are so freaking good. For sure. Ted Davies says, I'm inspired daily. Sunrises, waves crashing on the beach, and how many creators I can inspire with my actions or creations. And Sarah, you inspire many. You inspire me. I know that. Sarah says, I laugh when the people are so stupid during horror movies. Psychological horror movies, I don't laugh so hard about. Yeah. Like I said, it kind of like Misery. Like what I said, it just there's something about that. Those particular scenarios, I think, are where true horror to me lies. And I don't enjoy those types of. Now it depends on the psychological horror. Sometimes I like that. And Sarah says, awesome, Ted. Damian, do you have something to say? Oh, no. I thought you said something. My bad. Carl says, makes bunches of notes. Sarah says, Carl's preparing to scare the crap out of knowing people's phobias. Yeah, that's good. This would be a good time to do that. So, all right, Damian, you're up.
This actually gave me some pause because I realize these days more I create to create. Like the act of completion is the inspiration. And pardon me a second. And good time.
Hello, kitty.
It's a baby.
Oh.
But I tried to come up with names because I feel like the external media that I ingest is more for escapism than inspiration. I kind of turn internally for some of that inspiration. I've had 25 years off and on that I've been working on comics. As far as the toys and things are concerned, it's other people's art, other people's creations that inspire me the most. But if I had to pick at least one name, Pendleton Ward, I think, is for having a simplistic style, is an amazing artist. If you've looked at a lot of his sketch stuff, he has a way of bringing life to simple lines and shapes, and the world building that he created through Adventure Time is like the entire run from beginning to end is with just pieces in the background, and then the story, things adding to the story, and just building and building and building to what we found out to be the last season. But he also has a show on Netflix called The Midnight Gospel, and it's blanking on he did it with a podcaster.
It's a podcast that they made an animation animated show out of, right?
Yeah. He took clips and pieces and strung them together. They made a rough script to sort of fill in between episodes, and then Pendleton Ward and like one or two other people actually animated it themselves. And it is beautiful and weird, and
very weird.
There's an episode, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's an episode where his mother has a terminal disease. I forgot what she had. I think she may have had cancer. And it's this interview. He's interviewing her. And it's this beautiful conversation that in and of itself is very sweet and very emotional, but the animation brings so much more to it. It brings like this extra element of sort of chaos and order, sort of taking the stage, it alternatingly throughout the whole thing. It just the ability to take so many simple things and create something bigger than its parts. That inspires me. As far as like art or animation, visual media goes. The other big thing is if I wasn't doing art, I'd be doing music. I'd be making music, or I'd be singing, or I'd be doing something. So I'll get in these jags where I'm just like, I sit there and I listen to the same artist or album just over and over because it gets that emotional juice going and sparks me. I've got a playlist that's like the Hooded Boy. It's my Realmer playlist for when I'm drawing, and it's probably 200 artists long, 3,000 or 4,000 songs in there on Spotify. Aesop Rock's "No Regrets" is a track I come back to quite a bit. I actually posted something to Facebook earlier, and I can't believe I got the picture right here. Like the line that it's basically a song about this girl and then young woman and then older woman, elderly lady who from the moment she was born, she knew she wanted to be an artist. And it's just goes through her life in these 2.5, 3 minutes of the song. And her dying words, I'm going to read it. So
go for it.
She goes, "Look, I've never had a dream in my life because a dream is what you want to do, but still haven't pursued. I know what I wanted and I did it till I was done. So I've been the dream that I wanted to be since day one." And that gets me in the heart. Like every time I hear that, because every time I look at something that I've created and put it out in the world, I think that's what I wanted. That moment of release, of giving it to the world and saying, "Hey, whether you like it or not, it's here." And I was, and
that's cool.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool, man. And Mike Jimmy actually agrees with you. He says The Midnight Gospel is such a weird, trippy show, and it has charm for sure. And double stuffed gluten-free Oreos inspire Ted Davies as well. Do what?
Do they make gluten-free Oreos, or are they just gluten-free?
I don't know. I would imagine so, since Ted enjoys them. That they do make them. I like Oreos in any form. Honestly, I'm just a classic fat kid. I will eat any Oreos that are in front of me. I usually have my top three that I've always said. The creators that inspire me. It's Mike Mignola, Bruce Timm, and who's the creator of Batman the Animated Series, for those who don't know, and Neil Gaiman. Those three are kind of just like Neil Gaiman as far as writing style, as far as how, like, I've taken his masterclass like 5 times now, just because he and I both like how he thinks when he writes, how he thinks when he world builds is very much like exactly to the T how I approach world building and how I approach a story. And so it was so funny, like hearing him say all like how he creates, how he puts everything together, and like how he kind of puts ideas off to the side, and it was just really very, very much mimics what I had already been doing. So I was like, all right, sweet, this is great. And I absolutely love his comics, especially Sandman. And of course, everybody knows I'm a huge Hellboy nut. And I love Batman the Animated Series. I know, right? And I love Batman the Animated Series. It probably made the biggest influence on me as a child as far as comics and creativity. What Bruce Timm did, what Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, and the rest did with that show was just phenomenal. And I am excited that they are coming back with J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves to create another Batman animated show. We'll see. Hopefully it's pretty good. But one that I've recently I've known about this creator for a very, very long time. I've known about his works. I've really dove into the mythos of his works and other aspects, but I've just now really started chronologically, led by a podcast series. I've been chronologically reading his works as they were written year to year, and it's H.P.
That's usually
Lovecraft.
what chronology means.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. And it's H.P. Lovecraft. And I mean, the guy definitely had a lot of faults. He was a huge xenophobe, huge racist. But the mythos that he built, the mythos that he created, so many people have been able to take that and adapt it into something, that has inspired them. I mean, perfect example is Hellboy. That whole universe is heavily inspired by Lovecraft. And Lovecraft was really the first person to approach weird cosmic horror and make an entire shared universe out of all of his stories. And he welcomed other people, other writers, to jump in and write their own stories based on his works. He was very giving in as far as that was concerned, even though he had his own extreme stupid prejudices. As a writer, he was a genius. As a world builder, he was amazing. And I have really been diving deep into the Lovecraft stories because of the works that I am currently going through. Memoirs of an Angel has kind of always been steeped in Lovecraft mythos, but is really about to here soon. And a couple other books I'm working on are really in deep with Lovecraft mythos. So I really wanted to know. I wanted to read them all. I wanted to listen to them all. I wanted to study, kind of his approach before I jump into that. And I did not expect to be as hooked to his works as I am. I can't get enough of it. It is so much fun. It is so, it's the perfect amount of like science fiction, fantasy, and creepy horror that it's a great combination of those three. And it's usually all told through narrative. It's usually all told through, just a narration. And half the time you don't know the character's name, but just hearing him describe all the stuff is so chilling. And some of the stories, are a bit of a dud, and some of them are just phenomenal. So yeah, that I would say, outside of my usual three that I always talk about, and I've talked about before on this podcast and others, he's a new one for me. That like I said, not new at all. He's been dead a long time, but
very dead.
Yeah, very, very dead. But I haven't really dug deep into his writings as much as his mythos that other people have done, and I'm loving it. It is, and I'm getting so much inspiration from his stuff and just his technique of writing, that it's great. And let's see, Rick Rad Publishing says, good evening all. Sorry I'm late. I blame society. All right, me too. And Donna Carleen says, no, ban Oreos. They abandoned their factory in Illinois and took it south. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Oh, I'm sorry. I love Oreos, though. They're my favorite cookie. And he said Batman the Animated Series was done by Paul Dini, one of the best series ever, by the way. Yes, yeah. What Paul Dini wrote one of the very few episodes of television that can make me cry every single time I watch it, and that is Heart of Ice, the introduction to of Mr. Freeze into the series. What?
No matter what, it always reminds me of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze.
Oh gosh. Oh god. Ice cold cool. No, the opposite of what you saw in Batman and Robin. Batman the Animated Series, Mr. Freeze, is complex. He is, man, you feel for him. And yeah, actually, I've watched that episode a few times and just rooted for him because the scenario that guy went through is so unfair and wrong, and I don't know. He's just got a very, very good story. And what they did, Mr. Freeze was not a very complex, good villain until Paul Dini got a hold of him and then just wrecked all of our emotions with that episode.
Did you watch Gotham on Fox?
I did.
Did you like their Mr. Freeze?
Yeah, I thought it was good. But that's what I mean. A lot of that came from Batman.
Right.
Yeah. That who we know Mr. Freeze to be today, it all comes from Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
He was just kind of a C-list villain up until that point, really. And Paul Dini gave him just such a beautiful story arc.
Yeah. I don't know how any of the characters in Gotham match up to their history in comics or anything like that, but I felt like that show overall, from somebody going in not knowing the history of those people, I just felt like they were all good stories. They seemed like way more complex than you would,
Yeah, they definitely took a lot of liberties. I thought the Jerome storyline was a little messy, but I liked how it ended. I liked, I loved their version of the Joker when he finally becomes the Joker in like the last episode of the show. I loved what he looked like. I loved everything about him. He was so cool. And the show, for a show about Batman that doesn't have Batman in it, it is a really good show. I was surprisingly pleased by it. Except Fish Mooney was the worst character in history. And I do enjoy Jada Pinkett Smith. I think she is a good actress and she's great in the Matrix movies. She was awful on that show. And maybe it was poor writing, maybe it was poor direction, but she was not good. But yeah, overall the show was really
my favorite.
I loved him. Yeah. Yes.
He didn't have to be big and fat and look like a fat penguin.
Yeah.
But the way that he kind of waddles that he had, I thought it was good.
It was really good. Brian K. Morris says the best Batman the Animated Series to episode to him will always be Almost Got Him. It was a big rock. I love Almost Got Him. For those who don't know by name, it is the episode where all of the main villains was a Joker, Poison Ivy, Two-Face, and Killer Croc are all sitting around a table playing cards and talking about how they almost got Batman. And it is such a cool episode. The ending of the episode's great. It's old enough. I'm totally going to spoil it for you. Killer Croc is not actually Killer Croc in the episode. It's Batman in disguise. And it's so awesome how they reveal it. And everybody else in the bar are all cops. And so that's how they get the three of them. I loved it. It was such a good episode.
That feels like a sitcom.
It kind of, some of those episodes of that show kind of feel like that. Like it's
everybody sitting around doing the flashback episode.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty fun episode, but it's so well told. Ted Davies says, okay, scratch the Oreos. Hellboy and coffee inspires me too. There you go, buddy. Rad Publishing says, and the Arkham series was a great video game thanks to the animated series. That's true. They pretty much you could almost say there were sequel to the animated series, maybe like a sister sequel to them. And Red, I think Paul Dini wrote the Arkham game. I can't remember if he did. I don't know. And I died laughing when he said it was a big rock. I enjoyed a lot of Gotham, says Carl Witzman. But yeah, Fish Mooney's parts were not favorites. Penguin and Riddler, though, very good. Penguin and Riddler were excellent in that show. They definitely, I mean, it was its own thing. They really did like what Smallville did. They kind of rewrote Origins, and they really, you know, they gave us all the main villains' origin stories while Bruce is a child and growing through his teenage years and becoming Batman, which makes sense because that means that by the time he becomes Batman, Gotham is just completely under control of all these supervillains. And so essentially Batman is the response to the supervillains instead of the supervillains being a response to Batman, which has happened so much in movies and comics. Is Batman shows up first for, you know, whatever reason, and then all these other supervillains emerge. And I like that they were already there. I like that. I think that is a really cool take on that Gotham was that bad before Batman. It makes sense. It doesn't just have to be run by the mob and corrupt cops. Like, why not have the supervillains come first? Like the Joker movie, right? I think that was a really cool take, that he became the Joker way before Bruce was ever Batman.
Man, that movie.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen that movie because I really like it.
Yeah.
But when he gets up and shoots, what's the guy's name?
Robert De Niro.
Morty or
yeah.
talk show host or whatever.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro. Like, it's still a surprise every time. You know it's going to happen, but the way that he delivers it, you're just like, did that just happen?
Yeah. It's like they did it like you were in the audience at that show. It was so well done. And my favorite part of the whole movie is the moment that he becomes the Joker in his mind. And that is when he's standing, it's the very end. He's standing on the car, everybody's shouting his name, and he does this.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, that is no longer, what was his name? Arthur in the movie?
Yeah.
Like, that is no longer Arthur. That is the Joker now. And I love that. It's such a tragic story. But it is so good. And Brian K. Morris says, someone actually made a card game out of Almost Got Him. Did they really? I didn't know that. That's pretty awesome. Rad Publishing says, I believe he did. And having Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as the Joker was the best. Yes, it was in the Arkham games. Absolutely. The
Kevin
Dingoes inspired me. Oh, look at you, Ted.
What a guy.
Right in the heart.
Hearts for you, Chief. You inspire us too, man. All right, guys. Well, let's jump into a couple questions about creativity and how we each approach it personally. Damian, this you'll be the first one this time. We're going to go the opposite direction. So first thing I want to ask is take us like on your own personal journey of your creativity. So when did you first discover your creative gifts, like what you were best at, and how did
special gift?
Your special gift. So when did you first discover your creative gifts, and how did that influence or guide your life up to this point?
For me, here's where it becomes a thing. So I wanted to draw since I was 3. My mom always told, she loves telling the story. You would just take a newspaper and you would cut out little Mickey Mouses and little things. You'd give them to people, and my wife is laughing in the background.
I hear her, yeah.
And that's how you got started drawing. I remember wanting to draw Smurfs were my thing, and it just kind of went from there. He-Man and Mickey Mouse. So I would draw He-Mouse.
I was going to say, did you ever do a crossover?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And Mickey Man.
And the helmet with the big Pluto was Battle Cat. But I just like to draw, and it wasn't really till I got into comics that I realized this is something I could do. Like this is like there's people that do this, and it's what they do. And that's when it became a thing. That's when it became like part of me, and became this journey to get these thoughts and ideas out into the world. Just get them out of me and see if maybe people would like it or people would like me. I mean, really, that's where it started for me. Is I wanted people to like me, and people liked my drawings, and it kind of became a weird feedback loop as a young, 10, 11, 12. It wasn't until I was 17 that I really decided this is what I want to do with my life. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to draw. I want to do comics specifically. And, from there it was like everything influenced me. I'll tell you the biggest thing, I was just thinking about this the other day. I was showing Talkspace, and I was given all these questions by the counselor on there. And I realized that everything that I do creatively is in some way my need to communicate to the world that I'm here and I see you too.
Yeah.
And we both exist. So let's make the most of it.
Yeah.
Like, let's be people together. Even
you say let's beat people together?
Yeah, I hope so. Let's do it.
Crime spree.
Cinder block.
We were just talking about the Joker. I think this is good inspiration.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that I haven't seen that movie, but because I was afraid I'd get. I haven't seen.
He also hasn't seen The Dark Knight Rises.
I just there was here's my lowbrow moment. There's probably a Marvel movie that was really cool at the time that I wanted to see.
Boo.
Like I said, escapism.
Boo. Chad, you offended Chad so much that he left.
Bye-bye.
Look at that. Jeez. Gosh.
Bye, Chad.
Bye, Chad. We hate you. Love you. We love you, Chad. I think, going back to like what you said about, being a 11, 12-year-old and your artwork being, I guess we'll let him back in, whatever.
Yeah. Couldn't do it. He said he hadn't seen those movies. I was out.
Yeah. No, I've been like just going back to this is messing me up here. There we go. Just going back to what you said. I think for me too, I agree. It was I could draw, and everyone was like, "Oh, cool, you can do that," and it was almost like self-worth, self-validation.
Yeah.
For the longest time, and then. And I had to work through that. Yeah, like I had to realize, okay, my worth is not in my art. My worth is not in, what my talents and gifts are. But that was very much like I feel that too, man. I went through that for a while because it was like that was where you fit in. Was you were the guy who could draw well, and then if you were ever faced with someone else who could draw better, I remember just feeling awful.
That's how animes start, right?
Yeah.
People battling each other for very weird reasons.
Usually screaming a lot about it. Yeah.
But it was also this form of communication. Like this piece of me, the you that's inside you that never really quite connects all the way out into the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. It is this way, still is. Like I gotta be honest, it still is this way for me to connect to that and broadcast that. Because the whole basis for Realmer was me being the 17, 18-year-old kid that was scared and didn't know what to do.
Jeremy's so confused. How scared were you?
Very. I was scared.
What does it mean?
But I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. I mean, this is like pre-websites, and this is like 95, 96. I'm like, I mean, they were there, but I didn't know what to do. I read Wizard Magazine. You know, that was like my
Wizard Magazine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, everybody's like, yeah. But the point being, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know where I wanted to do it. And I really didn't want to be here. I wanted to be somewhere else where it was interesting and there were people and life was happening. And I realized that everyone kind of feels that way, and so at some point it sort of develops their own reality as they grow and go out into the world. And I wanted to connect with those people, with those inner people. And that became the basis of the whole alternate read, that and reading many, many, many comics became the basis for the whole Omniverse. Like, it's just other people and connecting our worlds and realities together and being a community. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's it.
Awesome, man.
Shut up.
Neat.
No, that's really good. Jeremy. Rad.
It's my go-to response.
Else was all deep. I thought I'd get deep for a second.
No, that's good.
No,
That's
Chad,
good.
you've been extra quiet, and as much as I like that, I do have to ask if you have any thoughts, especially on what Damian brought up, because that was pretty deep. Usually, you're a deep thinker.
No.
Okay, Jeremy, go ahead on with your answer then. If you need me to repeat the question, I totally can.
No.
Okay, good.
No, I'm good. I spent a lot of my younger life being pretty apathetic, and I don't know where that was from or what caused it. And I'm sure
You're not
maybe
pathetic.
I need to. Huh?
You're not
No,
pathetic.
apathetic.
Oh, okay.
Apathetic. Like I don't care
Just
about
one of
things.
Just one of them.
One of the
Apathetic.
pathetics.
Just apathetic. Yeah,
Yes.
just one pathetic.
I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot other than hanging out with my friends and watching movies that I was really, passionate about. But there was a movie that I watched. It was probably around 2004, 2005. A friend of mine was like, "You got to see this movie. It's awesome." It's called The Night Watch, and it was a Russian-made movie.
Mm-hmm.
The director went on to direct Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Is that the
Timur Bekmambetov?
Yeah. No, it's the Night Watch is a vampire movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. It was on Netflix for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
That has a sequel too.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And
what was the second one called?
Day Watch.
Oh, it's Night Watch, Day Watch, and Bay Watch.
Yeah.
And the third one was really weird. Didn't feel like it fit. Sorry.
Let me finish the story, please. But yeah, it was just so interesting. It was one of the first foreign language movies that I ever remember watching, where you're constantly having to read the subtitles, which makes things now like lots of conversations. I know the director of Parasite had a comment when he accepted the award that people just need to it was something to the effect of like, get over that 2-inch line at the bottom of the screen or something like. I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but this Night Watch movie, it was just so engaging that you didn't care, like you just like it was a drug. It was like you had to have the rest of the movie as quickly as he could get it to you, and you didn't care what it was. Just so unique in my mind. And that stuck with me. I've watched it probably 15 times or something like that, and it got me thinking, like, what can you come up with if you just kind of like made everything up? And I think that was difficult for me because my brain seems to not work the same way that other people's do. So I've always been afraid of, like, if someone saw behind the facade. And so for, and I even said this with David Fincher, like, what could you create if you didn't care what other people were going to think? Like, if you just said everything was just all the knobs all the way up to 11 and it didn't matter, you were just going to make it, and hopefully it made sense and other people liked it. That was kind of that got me going, inspirationally speaking. The end.
Nice. All right.
It was nice.
That was nice.
Yeah, I think with the last comment you made there, Jeremy, I think it was really important, that the idea of what would you make if you created something and it didn't matter what anyone else thought. And I think that you really have to be able to get to the place where everything you create is that way. Yeah. Because you have to get to that place, I feel like, because for me, and I identify with what Damian was saying, even though I was literally in and out of his conversation because I cut myself off. But the part where he's just talking about, like, especially when you're young, you start getting a lot of identity from your art. And for me, that happened for many years up until even recently. You think about it so much, about, like, how's it going to be received, and in the comic book world and in the art world in general, like, a lot of your success is dependent upon whether people like what you're doing, because they're going to buy it if they like it. And so it's very difficult to make that separation between this is the thing I've created and people like it or not, and my own personal identity. It's very difficult to separate those two. And I think the best art is created out of a place of humility, in my personal opinion, a place of humility. And that place that you were talking about, Jeremy, where you're creating something and you don't care how it's received. And you have to get to the point where you are willing to create something even if no one likes it. Mm-hmm. And I think if art is or being creative is your job, that can sometimes be a huge challenge, because you don't want to take that risk, you know, like, what if I put this out there and no one buys it? What if I put this out there and I get fired, or my boss doesn't, or the creative director doesn't want to go that way, or whatever it is. But it is a beautiful thing when you have the people that just create because they want to create, and I just often think of examples throughout art history of those artists that made things, and they were either no one ever knew about them, or they weren't well received, and it wasn't until generations after their life that they saw the true genius of what they were doing.
My mind always goes to, like, Edgar Allan Poe. Because that man, like, he did not, and even H.P. Lovecraft, both of them, like Lovecraft especially, was really, I mean, he was by his peers, by actual, like, by more prestigious writers. They looked at pulp novels, pulp writings, and especially his stuff as really third class things. And now, like, to our generation, my gosh, he's a hero. People have drawn from his works and made amazing things and love his works so much. He never saw this. But yet he had to tell these stories, and he had to do it. And he was not a happy man a lot of times. The dude was super depressed. He was always, he was a recluse. He hated people. He hated being around people. He did not live a happy life. I mean, and his works aren't very happy either. But he did it because he had to. He did it because it was something within him that he had to get out. And as an artist, as a creator, I feel that on every level. I've said it from the get-go. If everyone stopped buying, my books, if nobody, if we couldn't afford to print them anymore, I would still make them. I would make them for me, because that's where this started anyway. I wanted to do this for me, because it was so personal. And I think if that's your goal, if you want to create because you have to, and it's in your very being to do that, then I think you'll always be a creator. If you keep that spirit, if you keep that focus, right? Because, I mean, think about it. Like, yes, it's a huge rush and it's great, to create something for other people to enjoy and to see them enjoy it. But there, like we've already said, there's a ton of creators that never got to see people enjoy their works. But my gosh, how many people have? I mean, look at Vincent Van Gogh. Yeah. Another great example. He never got to see his works be as big as they are now. I mean, he's, remembered as one of the greatest artists of history, and he never got to see that. So it's, in another way, it's also a selfless thing. Like you said, it's very humble. Is create for people whom you are never going to see. Because, my wife said, and I've said this before, she says, don't create for the people right now. Yes, create for people now that, you listen to your readers, all that stuff. But like create with people 10 years, 20 years from now who haven't read a comic yet, who may not even be born. Your biggest fan may not be alive yet. And, but keep going, keep creating, because one day they will show up and they will pick up this work that you have done, and it might change their life. Yeah. And if you stop now, that won't happen. Yeah. So that's kind of what I have in the back of my mind a lot of times when I'm creating.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, and with whatever you're doing, it goes back to answering the question, what is your motivation for doing it? And there was some passing comments at the beginning of the show where people said, well, I'm inspired every time I look at my paycheck or my bank account or the bills I have to pay. And I think on one level, yeah, that's definitely true. Sometimes, like for me, I have a couple projects that I'm potentially getting paid to do. And I sit there and think, well, I want to do these other things, but I have to do these things because I've made a commitment to someone to make those. And my creativity is a little bit different on those. If I had to be completely honest, there's on those projects where you have to do them, you're being paid for to do them. The inspiration is by force sometimes. Like you're just like, oh, I have to sit down and do this. I have no other choice. Yeah. But I feel like in those artworks that you're doing that they're not being paid or recognized or anything, you're just doing them. I feel like you have a different kind of freedom that allows you to do things and take risks and, put something out that maybe people don't understand or don't want, that doesn't matter. So, yeah, it's a difficult thing as being a creative, like, especially when it becomes a professional thing, like trying to maintain that balance. It's very difficult.
Yeah. Like I've told people, like, I love where I work. My day job is great. I absolutely love the guys I work with. We're a small enough company to where you don't get that, corporate-y feel to it at all. It's very much, you show up, you be yourself, you do your job, and it's fun. And Damian now works with me. He can attest to that. And honestly, I don't ever plan on leaving. I plan on retiring from there. But what I don't ever plan on retiring from is creating comics. I will always be doing that. And, my day job gives me, I look at it as a tool to help me create better. It gives me health insurance. It gives me a steady paycheck. And it's a good place to be employed. I enjoy working there. Why would I leave that? Why would I leave that to go? And I mean, now granted, okay, if Netflix showed up at my doorstep and was like, we want to make Memoirs of an Angel into a TV show. Here's $4 million. We're like, all right, peace out. And I would go do that because that's amazing, but that's probably never going to happen. Right. So, and that's not a pessimistic thing to think about. It's just reality. Yeah. But what I've done is I have found a good place to fit in a day job that can fuel my, that can pay my bills, that can do all the work so that my art doesn't have to do that. Mm-hmm. Now I can just create because I love it, and I can focus on doing that, and I can make stuff for people just because I love it. So, and it doesn't, I don't have the pressure of, if I don't make this book and it doesn't sell, I don't eat. Yeah. There's that pressure is not there because of that day job.
Yep, you could always eat your cat if you.
I could, but she would probably eat me first.
Oh, really?
Mm. Yeah, I would try. If that were to happen, she would just, it's only a matter of time.
You just wake up and she's like carrying the pillow in her mouth. Yeah. Just staring at you with those evil eyes.
Yeah. She'd be like, it's time, Dad. It's time. What do you got, Damian?
And I'm not afraid to admit it at this point because I'm much better now. Due to my anxiety and depression that I've fought with for years, I had a really hard time holding down a job because my art and my creativity meant so much to me. Mm-hmm. It was this form of communication from inside to the outside, and I had a really hard time. It's only been the last legitimately almost decade, 7-8 years, that I've really been able to understand what you were saying about it being fuel for the furthering of that endeavor, and not being something that, a punishment.
Yeah.
Some hellish punishment you're thrust into because, life takes money, and because it does, life takes money, but some of that money has to go to what you're making, and so that, well, you put it better than I can. The point being that it just was really hard for a long time. So it took me a while to learn that. I think something that creators need to know, need to deal with that for themselves.
Oh no, for sure. I mean, and I also have to say, in a day job, finding a day job, also don't settle there, because it is a tool, but also don't go to a place you hate if you can help it, right? Like, I get it. Some people can't help it. They have to go to a place that they hate because they're stuck. That's fine, but work towards not being stuck. Make the place you hate be a tool to get to a place you don't. I worked multiple jobs, doing many different things that I never thought I would do. I ended up in the medical field, which I never saw happening. And I finally got to a place that I can go and I can, be a cog in this wheel of this company. And it's appreciated, and hugely, they support what I'm doing outside of work. That's big. Is you don't really have to enjoy what you're doing in your day job per se. If you can find a place where you enjoy the people that you're working around, the work environment is good, and they allow you to, they promote you having a life outside of that place. And they really help you, because like my coworkers that are my friends. My friends show up at shows when I do Comic Cons. They back books that I put on Kickstarter. Like, these guys that I work with are awesome, and I have found, I've been blessed. I've found a great place to be, but it wasn't always that way. I had to work some jobs. Damian, you and I have also worked at the same company before. That wasn't like that. It was the exact opposite. But I used that place to get to a point where I could be where I am now. And it sucked. I didn't enjoy it. But I'm glad that I was able to use it to get here. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So let's jump into the comments really quick. Ted Davies says the Silence books inspire him.
Thank you.
There's only one so far. So
I'm getting the second one Friday.
I'm excited. I need it in my life.
Getting
the
second one Friday.
I'm telling you, I'm driving down there Friday and picking it up.
Sure you are. Ted Davies says,
I hate you.
The Nebulizer, Memoirs of an Angel, and Realmer inspire me too. Thank you, sir. And then Damian confesses his love to Ted Davies, and he responds and calls us all his minions, and that's wonderful. Whoops. And all right. Rad Publishing says, even though Lovecraft was not a fan of people, the fact that he let everyone contribute to his world and let it grow to the amazing sprawling world it is now is just great. And it is. It really is. Like I said earlier, that's a huge redeeming factor to him, even though he had some really bad views. He shared a lot of his work with fellow writers, for sure. Molly Daniels is here. She says, greetings. Have a day off from the evening job and decided to tune in after dinner. We're glad that you're here. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. Carl says, sometimes I will create something for just one person, and if other people like it, that's even better. I think that's a great attitude to have. Because, I have, other than myself, thinking of Memoirs of an Angel here, I have, a specific handful of people that really do they're on the edge of their seat waiting for the next issue, and it's really cool. And honestly, like I said, hey, if I love that it gets backed. I love that people show up and enjoy the series. But the ones who love it the most, that talk to me about it all the time, those are the people I'm making it for, alongside myself as well. So I think that's a good place to get fuel from. Rad Publishing says, I know this sounds like such a stock answer, but my kids inspire me. Not a stock answer at all. I want to leave a legacy behind that they can be proud of, maybe even awaken something in them to create and change the world. I've heard our very own Chad Nuss say very similar things in the history of our friendship. Carl Ritzman says, have to run, but good show. We'll catch the rest on the rerun. Carl, have a good night. Donna, if you are gone too, have a good night, and we will see you later. Molly Daniels says, my original plan was to return to the workforce after the last child entered kindergarten or first grade, but by then I was writing 6 to 9 hours a day and liked it much better. I do not blame you. We went back to work when the spouse retired and refused to fund my promotional trips. Just found out my 9-year-old granddaughter likes graphic novels. Yes.
Nice.
Yes. One of us. Awesome. I love it. Red Publishing says, I agree. Definitely wouldn't invite Lovecraft over for dinner if he were alive. No, would not. But I do respect what he did for writing. Absolutely. As a professional, he was groundbreaking. For sure. All right, Jeremy.
Yeah.
On to you, sir.
What do you mean?
Did we already
in
do
what
that?
Capacity?
The next your thoughts. Take on
I did. Yeah.
What?
I did one. Question number 1. I did it already.
You did it? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Chad, you go.
Perfect. Glad I had such an impact on your life.
Yeah. I don't remember it at all.
So awesome.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Who was that?
I think that was Lori.
I'm sorry. That was my wife in the other room.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
Chad, what?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm distracted by Jeremy and his craziness. So, anyways,
well, how was that being crazy? He asked me if I had done the question, and I said I had done the question. I did one. Number 1. On to Chad.
All right. We're still on number 1 then. All right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I've had drawn and, felt creative since I was really young. There's not a moment at which I was like, oh, I think I can really, really do this. It's something I've always enjoyed to do. I know there's a couple times in my life that have stood out. Like I remember going to get my first comic book, going to the first comic book shop, realizing people did that for a living. And at that moment, it's like, yeah, that's something I could really do. And then from that, I worked my way towards that. So in school, when I was in high school, I would draw a lot and took art classes and was working on a portfolio and knew that I wanted to go to school for it, and then went to college for art. And then after that, my life took kind of a detour. Got into ministry for a little bit and put art away for about 10 years. Didn't really draw or do a whole lot with art for a big chunk of time, but it was one of those things that kept coming up. And so I eventually returned to it, and now I do it pretty much full time, as much as I can, apart from my family. So yeah, so it's always been there, always something has influenced my decisions and viewpoint on life for sure.
It was actually the combination of ministry and art that brought us together.
I know.
Isn't
so
it
sweet?
special? When we were at seminary, we met and the sparks flew. And we ended up being the only people in the art club at the end.
Yeah.
It started with like 20 people, and it was kind of booming for like a day, and then it ended up just being me and Chad meeting at coffee shops and pubs.
There were so many good ideas with that, and like it's one of those things that I think people on paper are like, man, this is an amazing idea, and then just life gets in the way, and then it's just one of those things. Unless it's a priority, they had a hard time getting off the ground.
And I mean, a lot of those people were like master's students, graduate students and PhDs. When unfortunately, in that stage of life, it is very difficult to make art a priority. So when you're working that hard to go after something that you love, it makes sense. You gotta make some sacrifices.
For sure.
Cool.
So, Chad, was that all?
Oh, that was it. Yeah. That was up to
short and sweet.
Today.
Look at that.
Yep.
Look at that. And Rad Publishing is laughing at us. Wonderful. So for me, just quick, I think my journey of creativity began with asthma. As I've said many times, it always comes back to that, because that if it weren't for my asthma, I would not have learned how to draw. I would not have learned how to really focus on storytelling, because I'm a big dude. I love to go out and play when I could. I would have probably ended up being huge in sports and loved doing that, and instead I became an art guy. I really started paying a lot of attention to movies and animation and comics. Those were the big things that just something about animated movies, especially Don Bluth movies and Batman the Animated Series, really just kind of woke something up inside of me that was a storyteller. And from that, I really dove into comics. Probably when I was about 10 years old. I read comics off and on up until that point. But when I was a preteen in middle school, that's when comics became huge for me. I think around that time is when I had been drawing that whole time. And so I knew I could draw. And like I said, around that time, it was very much attached to my identity. I was the kid who could draw, and everybody wanted me to draw them pictures. And I loved that. It was a lot of fun. And that kind of carried over into high school. And then like Chad, I considered going into ministry for a while, went to seminary. And my art did take a bit of a back burner, but as I've said before on this show and others, during lectures in my classes and stuff, I still have notebooks that off to the side, you see little notes about what would eventually be Memoirs of an Angel. So even during that time when I wasn't really drawing, I wasn't really writing stories, I was still dreaming this stuff up in my head, and that storytelling never really left. And then when my life took a different direction outside of ministry, I met Robin, and we got to a place where we could get married, and that was settled. And then I found a place where I was free to really pursue doing comics. And that kind of brings us to where I am today. I realized, hey, this is an actual thing. We're at a place now where technology allows us to do this, and you can print it on your own. Kickstarter is a thing. Indiegogo is a thing. And here we are. So I think, that was really kind of just the story of Brian's creativity in a nutshell.
Did you ever wrestle with oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy.
You got it. No, you got it.
Okay. Did you ever wrestle with doubts? Like, you ever those places and you're like, maybe this isn't what I should do, and how did you work through that?
What do you mean, like with other jobs? or
just in general, or whether it's creativity, like you're thinking about making a comic book and you're thinking, could I do this for a living? Should I do this for a living? It's kind of related to the imposter syndrome type question, but like, how did you work through that? Did you ever get to a point where you were like, no, I want to do this for a living? Or was it always like, it's okay if it's just a hobby, those kind of things? Like,
there was, so when I was in college, because I really wanted to be a comic book artist, but I didn't know how. My parents, although they were very encouraging to those, dreams, they really wanted me to have a job that was either, it was either a job that would make money or ministry, which will not make money. If you do it right, it doesn't make you money. And so like they really wanted me to pursue a real job. They didn't want, necessarily me to be a starving artist kind of guy, which I appreciate. But they were never discouraging in those dreams. Like they had always kind of instilled in me, like, you can do both. And that thought never left my head. There were definitely times of doubt though. Like, I mean, goodness, I remember there were a few times here and there where I was just on a path where I was like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And is this, especially creative wise, like, am I ever going to actually, I think that's what it was. Am I ever actually going to make this? And I think that's where I stayed for a very long time, because I didn't make it to a place where I was freed up to do it. I didn't know how. I didn't know, what tools I had to use to make comics. And so with just, the dream of wanting to do it and not knowing how, I lived in doubt when it comes to that, because reality would sit in. And I'd be like, I have no idea how to make a comic, really, and I don't know what I'm doing here. And there's, like it wasn't until probably around 2016, 2017, where I realized, like, okay, this is a thing, and I can actually do this, and it can at least self-sustain. And that was it, really. And then ever since then, it's never been a doubt in my mind. Like, I've not had any doubts since then. Like, all I have to do is kind of look around, and all I have to do is look at this stack, and be like, yep, I make comics. and I can do this now. And there's no real doubt about it that it's not going anywhere, which is wonderful. It's a great feeling.
I think you and I have a similar story where, like, we kept talking about wanting to do something and, being creative. And then our wives were just like, you just need to figure it out and just go do that thing. Like,
it was like borderline support and borderline like, oh my gosh, just go do it. It's like, I've heard about this for far too long. Frickin' do something. And of course now Robin's my business partner in this, and she's great. It's very similar to that conversation you and Sarah had. So anyway, we are almost out of time. We didn't even get through like one question. We got through one topic. So obviously we have more to say. What do you guys say? Next week we continue the topic. Yeah. You think?
Yeah.
Sure. In the comments, if you like that idea, tell us. If not, we'll do something else. We'll come back to this another time. So anyway, just as a closer, though, I liked this one a lot, Chad. This was a good closer. Go around the room really quick. I'll actually start on this one. Is creativity a gift or a skill? And I say yes. I think it is. No, really, because I know people who I know. I really believe everyone's creative in some way. It may not be in drawing. It may not be, writing stories or performing music or anything like that. Like, my wife is an accountant. She's creative in how she does finances. She's creative in how she figures it all out.
Like how the mob is creative?
Kind of. Yes. The mob is creative in how to be super illegal. And and no, but really, like you think about it, yes, it is really illegal, but that is creative. The mob was super creative, definitely in the 30s and 40s.
By somebody, just the mob was super creative.
Just the mob. The mob was super creative. The mob was super creative. Brian Robin.
Next T-shirt.
I like it. But I would say like it is. I think people have more creativity some people have more visible creativity than others, and I think that can be considered a gift. I do believe that, you know, if you are a talent to sing, some people can kind of they're born talented, right? Like some people, it's not very hard for them to pick up a piece of music and play. My niece is a genius. She can listen to a song on the piano and go and play it. And it's fascinating. She's very good at that. And I think some people in different areas of their lives, they can do those things. And I think that is a gift, but it's also a skill, because some people who start off drawing rough stick figures can eventually get to a place, if they practice enough and they hone their skill in doing that, they learn the technique and it can be done. And I think it's a blend. I really do. I think it's a blend of both. But I don't think you can necessarily say concretely one or the other, in my opinion. I feel like it blends pretty well. So I don't know. That's my opinion. What do you think, Chad?
Well, I think you're wrong. That's why. No, just kidding. I think it depends on how you define what you're talking about with creativity, and you know, it goes back to exactly what you're saying with the example of, I forgot what example you used. I think of singing. You know, like you could sit there and I could practice to sing, but my wife is definitely gifted as a singer, and no amount of practice is going to get me to her level. Or if you think about sports, like some people, you know, you could practice every single day, all day long, and you're never going to get to the level that some people can get to. Like, I'll tell you another example. Like, I like to play chess. I'm pretty average. And so when I look at like the world champion right now, Magnus Carlsen, like when you look at the way he can play and the things that he could do with his mind, I will never be able to reach that. Like, he was definitely born with a mind that's different than mine or yours or anyone's, really. So I think, you know, I would definitely agree with you. I mean, there's a sense in which creativity can be a skill, something that you learn over time and you work at. And even those that are gifted often talk about how hard they have to work to really help that gift flourish. And so, I think it's a bit of both, but I also think depending on what you're talking about, whether it's singing or art or physical or whatever it is, there are definitely people that have been gifted in a much different way than other people, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I feel like we're talking about, like, I don't think a skill and creative are always like synonyms, if that makes sense. So like, you can have something that you're good at that's just freaking automatic, right? Mm-hmm. That's not really being creative if you think about creativity as this like outpouring of your soul or of your mind, or, you know, things like that. Sometimes you're born with, like, you're born 7 foot tall. Like, as much as I tried really hard, I could not be that, you know? And I think that, I think those sort of things that are just automatic, those skills, it's not the same as the creativity, which is almost like a drug that you're like on a quest for, you know what I mean? Your whole life, you're looking for it. You have no idea, or at least for me, when it's going to show up. You just kind of hope that it does in enough time. It's like this
magical force that takes over you sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, you just hope that it shows up in enough time for you to make your deadlines, right? You know, so I don't know.
Yeah. All right, Damian, what about you?
My thought.
I agree. It's both. I agree that it's a fair amount of both. There's the third word I think that's missing from that, and curse is the word.
Oh.
I have at times felt like it was a curse because I wanted to just be able to work a job and be happy and not feel like I was inside because I couldn't.
You were like Clark Kent in Smallville. I just want to be normal.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Yeah, I get it.
So, but I mean, as the actual like building of the discipline, definitely skill. Yeah. But you gotta have a spark. You gotta have a spark towards it. There's people who bake cupcakes, and they're the best cupcakes. Is that a gift? Was that a skill? It's both. So I agree with you that it's both, but I also feel like it's intent and perception by the outside world as well. Okay.
That's good. All right, well, guys, let's jump to the comments. We got some people saying some stuff. Molly Daniels says, I was the kid no one wanted to play Barbies with because I didn't understand why they couldn't follow the script in my head. I didn't know how to explain that to them. Yeah, I did the same thing with my toys, actually. I did the same thing with my Barbies, Molly. So in the 5th grade, I was introduced to the concept of creative writing, and I was hooked. Yeah. Honestly, I do have to say, I hated being forced to write creatively, like personal narratives or, short stories. I hated it. But man, those tools, I use them all the time now. And so I am thankful for them. Dang it, even though I hated school. Rad Publishing says, in junior high, the discovery of D&D was what got my creative juices flowing. One day I will have time to play, and that day will be wonderful, but it is not this day. Ted Davies says, great show, looking forward to part 2. So there's a vote for part 2. Rad Publishing says, keep the discussion going. Molly Daniels says, I concur. I think we got a part 2 coming next week, guys.
There you go.
Good, because we have like 4 other topics we didn't even touch. Or 4 other questions we didn't even touch. Pick out the melody or recreate the entire thing, a la Elton John. Rad Publishing says, creativity. Maybe you're born with it. Maybe it's Mabel.
It's very possible.
It is. Oh, Glenn Fleming. Hello, sir. How are you? He said, just jumped in. I think you're talking about a thing called talent. Most people can master a skill, but you can't learn talent. Chad, what do you think about that?
That I would probably agree with that.
Yeah,
because there are people. Yeah, there are people that. Yeah, they're just.
Well, you think about it. Some people can't sing. Going back to your example, some people can't carry a tune. Some people are tone deaf.
Yeah,
they can't.
Well, I think about sports a lot. I don't play sports, but I think of like there are some people they can learn the skill of playing basketball or baseball or whatever it is, but then there are some other people that are just faster and they just intuitively understand the game in a way that no one else can, and it's just a level of talent that we can't get to.
Yeah.
And so I would agree with that.
I'd agree with that too. Red Publishing says, Brian, I will run you a game sometime. It's a blast. I have played. I would love that, by the way, but I have played once before, and it was a game that Damian will get this. Matt Beatty was the dungeon master, and it was awesome. It was so much fun. Oh, I'll tell you tomorrow. We'll tell you tomorrow at work. It was so funny. But that's the only time I've ever played. And it was a blast. It lasted 3 hours, which is very short from what I've heard. Sometime it'll be fun, but be gentle with me because
I've never played Dungeons and Dragons before.
Really?
Never. And I've always wanted to.
I actually, and this is a serious moment. This season, I would love to team up with a local tabletop game creator here in Louisville and do a live game with him. I think that would be a lot of fun. Awesome. And I've already got a couple of his books that we can all jump off of, so let us know if that sounds fun for you guys to watch as well. Molly Daniels says, Brian, that question was directed to you about your niece. Oh yes. It is, like, in all seriousness, she learns by hearing, and she can read music fine, but that was like, that talent was already there. It was a gift for her. She could automatically just start playing piano at very early age, and she's a great student. Very proud of her. Glenn Fleming says, if a person can learn talent, we'd all be Jack Kirby. That is very true. He then goes on to say, people with no talent say it's just practice. Okay, I've been singing all my life, so why can't I sing like Marvin Gaye? That's a good point. Yeah. Molly Daniels says, that's why I only sing karaoke, Glenn. All right, guys. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you all for being here as well in the comments section. Before we head out, though, let's all share. I'll give you all the your solo screen time. Tell us how wonderful you are and where we can find you.
I am the amazing artist, creator, writer behind the epic sci-fi series called The Silence with Book 2. I'm going Friday to go pick up physical copies, of which everyone will have the chance to get. And you can check out my work at thesilencecomics.com or thesilencearts.com.
All right. Wonderful. And next we have the fantastic, the amazing Damian.
Hello. I'm Damian Baldwin, creator of Realmer X. I also make action figures with O Toys. You can find me Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. But ruomniversal.com is going to be the home for everything very, very shortly. So start there.
Nice. What is that again? Say it again.
ruomniversal.com.
Perfect.
Spelled like it's saying.
Thank you, sir. Jeremy.
Yeah, my name's Jeremy. You can find me and all of my stuff in my basement.
In my basement.
Yep.
Here I am in my basement.
That's where I make videos for people who are trying to sell their stuff on the internet. And they don't know how to tell good stories. But
that could be a really weird sentence if you didn't know the context.
What?
In my basement, where I make videos for people to put on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, like any kind of video. That's the thing. Whatever you want to do, just come in my basement and I'll make a video of it.
I like put it on the internet. Head, right?
All right, so I'm Brian. To save us from this, I'm Brian Ryman, author and illustrator.
I live in my parents' apartment.
The horror fantasy comic book series Memoirs of an Angel and the post-apocalyptic action comedy The Nebulizer. You can find both at brianryman.com. I'm also 1/4 of the Dastardly Dingoes podcast and 1/4 of Comic Book Spectrum on the Rising Tide Network every Thursday night at 7 p.m. And of course, this show is always on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for both as well. You can find all of my shenanigans at brianryman.com. All my social media stuff is there as well at the top. And once again, thank you guys for being here. Rad Publishing says, I've been told my singing voice sounds like a crying angel. Interesting. Are they biblical angels? Because that's what made people afraid. And then Glenn Bleak.
Pretty metal.
Yeah, I know, right? I should be in a metal band. Not really. Glenn B. Fleming says, no, I just got here. I'm so sorry, sir.
But get better, man.
Is Glenn sick?
I'll let him say if he wants.
Okay. Well,
today,
feel better, sir. I'm so sorry that you are not feeling well. Check out the whole episode though. Here in just a second, you can check out the replay, man. And we'll hopefully catch you next time. Next week, we'll continue this topic of inspiration and creativity. So come back, come show up in the comments section and be a part of the conversation. We would love to have you, love to hear what you have to say. And as always, folks, thank you so much for being here. Like and subscribe and hit that bell to be notified every time a new episode comes up. And remember, kids, the people who inspire those around them are those who are most inspired themselves. See you next time, everyone. Have a fantastic and beautiful, beautiful evening. That's all for now.